Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing another topic that I've been requested of a number of times over the years. That topic has to do with the original and future Trunks timeline, and more specifically, with two characters that we saw there. Two heroic characters who would go on to have their own various tragedies along the way throughout the course of the Dragon Ball story that could have possibly been prevented if future Gohan and future Trunks use the hyperbolic time chamber or room of spirit and time. So the question is, why exactly didn't they do that? Why didn't they seemingly know about it? Or if they did, why didn't they use that time chamber and take full effect of that incredible training that we saw witnessed in the Cell Saga of Dragon Ball Z in the main timeline? Well, before I get into that, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications so you can stay up to date with all my future videos. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share your own thoughts down below, and also check out my new series that you can see in the top right corner where I'm going through the entire Dragon Ball manga and reviewing every single chapter. I'm sure you guys will like that, especially if you like these types of videos. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So let's begin, of course, with the future Trunks story so we could see exactly what would change. And I know a lot of times people are like, Mike, why are you recapping things we already know? Because a lot of people either don't remember, don't know, or because, like I always say, it provides context. So if you comment that again, well, you understand why, so your comment is redundant. But let's keep going. Fact of the matter is, we actually saw Trunks and Gohan training at the start of this particular flashback slash flash forward, in which Trunks was actually already a Super Saiyan at the time when he was training with Gohan, who only had one arm. However, they were training outside under regular gravity on Earth next to the city over there. And the fact of the matter is, many people might be wondering, well, why were they training outside, with Trunks even being a Super Saiyan? Couldn't they have been sensed by the androids? No, actually, 17 and 18 didn't have the capability to sense powers. So they were pretty much good as long as 17 and 18 just didn't so happen to see them or stumble upon them, which they actually came pretty close to. Now, another big difference, another big departure in the anime adaptation is in that one, Trunks actually became a Super Saiyan after Gohan died, but in the original version that Toriyama wrote and drew, this is actually what happened where Trunks already was a child Super Saiyan, which, makes sense when we actually look at the original timeline, or the main timeline rather, where future Trunks and his child self in the main timeline both became a Super Saiyan very young. Trunks was about 14 here. We don't really know for a fact when he first became it. But we know that Gohan is saying that he improved a lot, and within a few more months, he might be able to overtake him. That's a very important thing considering all the time in the time chamber. In a few months on the outside, he might have been able to overtake him. What about inside the time chamber? This is Gohan too that we're talking about. So Gohan was saying that Trunks training him would have caused Trunks to surpass Gohan, the guy who has the ultimate potential in the franchise. But as they're saying here that Gohan lost his arm, which limited him. He's kind of like Darth Vader in that sense. Anakin lost some of his potential with the Force and the ability to manipulate that when his arms and legs were cut off and he was burned alive, and a bunch of other things that happened. Gohan, I guess, is very similar, where he lost that left arm and couldn't get it to come back as the Sensu Bean, which apparently can turn him into Piccolo temporarily and regrow, limbs at any point. However, according to Gohan here, it doesn't seem like he actually was as powerful as Goku after he returned to the Earth from Yardrat. And I went more in depth into just how powerful Goku actually was in the original timeline, another video you could see in the top right corner. This is when the androids attacked, leading to Gohan knocking out Trunks and then rushing off to fight against them. However, this would be completely in vain because of the fact that even though he's able to get the advantage and sneak attack 17, according to 17, he was using less than 50% of his power the last time Gohan trained. And according to Gohan, all the training he was doing was to try and surpass and defeat 17, which he was gauging at that level of strength. So let's say that Gohan became 60% of Android 17's power. Well, with that extra 40, when he went full power, Gohan didn't really stand a chance, and he got killed off screen mercilessly and without a whole lot of effort, completely contrasted against the anime version where he fights both of them at the same time with one arm, which is, despite being a Gohan fan, is a little bit too much, I feel like. And, a lot of people obviously disagree there, but this is what leads to Trunks finding him. And then because the death of Gohan and because the fact that everything is so hopeless, Bulma actually creates the time machine so Trunks can go back in time to be able to save Goku and either to, find a way to defeat the androids in the past or to be able to bring Goku to the future so the two of them as Super Saiyans could defeat the androids, which they wouldn't have been able to because even then they probably would have still been able to defeat Goku and Trunks at that point in time. Nonetheless, Trunks also proves his inferiority because at this point he's as strong or really even stronger than Gohan was when he died, and as a result, still gets wrecked by the androids, who are implied to have left him alive just so that they'd be able to keep toying with him. But was all this really necessary? If Trunks and Gohan actually knew about the time chamber, then they could have trained inside of it instead of what we see here, where they're training on the outside under regular gravity. Trunks could have leveled up to Gohan much faster or really surpassed him, especially if this is after the fact they lost his arm. And then in turn, we could have seen basically a replay of what we saw here at the very end of the arc when Trunks returns to the future after having gone in the time chamber twice and is able to easily kill 18 by deflecting her attacks, blowing her away, and then killing 17, and eventually even killing Imperfect Cell at this point, who theoretically probably was weaker than the other two, but as we see, he eliminates him and stops the infinite time loop that could have happened. And, in the time chamber, we see not just how powerful Trunks got when he went in with Vegeta the first time, we also saw just how powerful Vegeta got, who is just a pure-blood Saiyan, who doesn't necessarily have the same degree of potential that his son Trunks or Gohan have as hybrids, which they explain at the very start of Dragon Ball Z, that they should have a greater potential than the purebloods because of the intermixing of the human and Saiyan DNA, proving to create a powerful hybrid, which would be more likely to become a Super Saiyan, as we do see with the younger Super Saiyans emerging within those different characters. But we also saw just how powerful Goku and Gohan became when they in fact went into the time chamber, and Goku purposely trained Gohan so that he would become more powerful than Goku, whereas Goku wanted to push himself to his very limits. And Vegeta inside the time chamber not only became powerful in his base form and Super Saiyan as a result, but also achieved a brand new form that was able to easily be able to defeat Semi-Perfect Cell, who would absorb the power of an even stronger, potentially, Android 17. I talked about the main timeline androids are actually stronger in another card in the top right, but Goku and Gohan got that much more powerful when they became their mastered grade 4 Super Saiyans, which not only were they able to harness the full power of Super Saiyan, but also be able to stay within the form without any real drawbacks whatsoever, at least until the following arcs where they just kept staying in their base form for some reason. I guess maybe Toriyama got tired of drawing them like this, I don't really know. But the fact of the matter is that Gohan got so powerful, he was not only able to surpass his father inside the time chamber, pushing his father to become even stronger because of the fact that they train together, but additionally, not just that, he was also able to unlock a brand new form of Super Saiyan 2 after he raged out after the destruction of Android 16. So again, if future Gohan and future Trunks trained in this time chamber, then they should have very easily been able to destroy the androids, just like Trunks does at the very end of the arc, killing both them and Cell. And not only that, but they probably would have been able to solo them exactly like he does here, even after just one day in the time chamber. I mean, let's say that theoretically Gohan here was equivalent to Goku either on Namek or on Yardrat, right when he returns, maybe slightly stronger because Goku was not training to fight against the androids during that 3-year time skip like he was in the main timeline after he got warned of them, so he wouldn't have trained anywhere near as intensely. Same thing with Gohan and the other characters, especially because Gohan did not actually train with Goku and others in the original timeline and the history of Trunks, which I talked about in yet another video about why future Gohan is so weak. And the fact of the matter is that if he had trained in the time chamber, especially with Trunks, even with the one arm, he probably would have been able to easily defeat the androids because of such a big boost and also training with a partner at the same time, just like we saw here. But again, why were they not able to? Well, I think there's a number of different theories that could come down to it. Number one is the fact that Goku is not involved in the picture. Because after all, Goku is the one who brings up the very idea of using the hyperbolic time chamber in order to train to not only surpass the androids, but also Cell. And he says even right here, he and Vegeta were both planning to surpass Super Saiyan, to go even further beyond it. Not Super Saiyan 3, that's not for another arc. But he even says right here that he knows of a place where he can train for a single day in 1 year's worth of training. He then goes to Piccolo and asks him about this when he's grabbing Gohan to go there, and Piccolo even says right here, "Is that so? You plan to make use of the Room of Spirit and Time. I see, but nobody has ever lasted a full year in that room. Way back when, it was all you could do to last a single month." And this, of course, is not just Piccolo here, but also Kami, with all of his mind and memory and everything incorporated within this nameless Namekian, the Super Namekian. And so he remembers this because this is back when Goku was training with Kami. This is something that's also reiterated again back when Goku and Gohan went inside the time chamber, where Goku says right here, "Up in front's the reason why I couldn't stand a month in this place when I was a kid." And basically, when you go out into the white abyss that's out there, everything gets even heavier and a lot harder for you to endure and to be able to take. And Goku back then was obviously not going to be capable as a kid of withstanding 10 times gravity and all this other stuff that he was able to years later when he went to King Kai's planet. Also because obviously if Goku trained under this, it wouldn't be anywhere near as effective, so Toriyama had to retcon this entire idea because obviously they could have used it several times before this point and they just totally forgot about it, I guess. But the fact of the matter is that Goku did not tell anyone about this time chamber up until this point in time, maybe because the fact that he didn't think that anyone would be able to use it, because the fact that he wasn't able to withstand it for a single month when he was a kid, as Piccolo has actually stated before Goku in the previous panel that I just showed you. And so he just assumed, well, this place is like a horrible, torturous place, so nobody would be able to withstand it. Something that he also repeats a little bit later on after he goes to see Cell, where he says that he's not going to go back into the time chamber with Gohan again. And he repeats right up here, which is maybe, but all that pointless stressing of your body's torture, not training. So essentially he tells Vegeta he can go back in to catch up to him, but the fact of the matter is that being in that room is very torturous training. So it's likely that Goku simply never told anyone before this point because he assumed that they would be better off training on their own outside of the Room of Spirit and Time, outside of the time chamber, and as a result, he decided to do the very same thing and didn't go back until he absolutely needed to after the androids and Cell showed up, and he knew that he had to crunch time in order to be able to fight them and defeat them, as well as train up his son to be the one to be able to ultimately do that with his hidden potential and higher base power and everything on top of that. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Room of Spirit and Time, or hyperbolic time chamber, actually exists at Kami's lookout. And as we know, Piccolo actually died in the future timeline before anyone else, which means that Kami also died at the same time. So as a result, Piccolo and Kami wouldn't have exactly been there in order to tell anyone about the Room of Spirit and Time. You could say the same thing about Mr. Popo. A lot of people ask, well, why didn't Popo just go and tell anyone about the Room of Spirit and Time? Well, the fact of the matter is that we don't really know all the rules and laws about Popo. And most of the time that Popo is intervening in the story, it seems like it comes down to things that are related to helping people under the will of Kami, or things that he assumed that Kami would want them to do. Like, for example, when he had initially helped Bulma in the first arc, the Saiyan saga, after he had explained, essentially about Kami's ship so that they would be able to take it to Namek and then turn Wish Kami and everyone back that had died before. Whereas in this case, he wasn't exactly going to help them to find new Namek or a way to bring Kami back. Just showing the Earthlings or the humans how to be able to train wouldn't exactly be able to do anything other than perhaps defeat these people. So that's kind of a gray area, but let's say that Popo theoretically could have told them about that. Let's say that theoretically somebody, could have, communicated through King Kai, like Kami or Piccolo, or like Goku from the afterlife, and told Gohan and Trunks about the time chamber. Well, again, the Room of Spirit in Time and Kami's Lookout are a physical place on Earth. Not just that, but remember, Dr. Gero had been following Goku and friends up until the Namek saga, up until they went to fight against Frieza on Namek to retrieve the Dragon Balls, which means that from the time of the Red Ribbon Army up until the time after everyone had fought against Vegeta and Nappa on Earth, Dr. Gero saw every single thing that all the strongest fighters on the planet were doing, including the hyperbolic time chamber. It's entirely possible that Dr. Gero had a kind of bug following Goku when he went to train with Kami. That way he was able to not only see just how powerful Goku is becoming during that period of time, but also could have very well followed Goku into the time chamber. And then at that point, he would have known all of the capabilities of it. He would have known that it would have been a very large threat. And thus in turn, he would have programmed the androids with knowledge of this. So in turn, what ended up happening was that the androids actually went and destroyed Korin's Tower and Kami's Lookout and killed Mr. Popo, all to prevent any type of possible uprising or way of defeating them, because they already saw and interpreted and anticipated the possibility of them using this. So that's another big reason why it's possible that future Gohan and future Trunks did not use the time chamber in order to fight against the androids, because remember, the androids had about 14 years of time until Gohan went and fought against them at this point in the story, and 17 years up until Trunks originally went back in time. So it's entirely possible that during those years in which Gohan was hiding from them, training on his own, they could have gone and destroyed all of the different various spots that we saw in the original Dragon Ball, including Kami's Lookout, making it so that anyone who knew of Goku or of, his whereabouts, or who might have been able to show him about where Gohan was or anyone like that, or might have proven any kind of challenge to them or had any sort of fun fight with them, he could have gone 17 and 18 and killed every single one of them, blew up Kami's Lookout, and made it to where the time chamber was no longer accessible, and then in turn made it to where this was no longer an option for Goku, for Gohan, for anyone who wanted to come back to train again, to do anything like that, one-day visits, things I've talked about in other videos, but I probably ran out of cards at this point in the story. So with that being said, why didn't future Gohan and future Trunks use the time chamber? Well, I think in universe there's a very strong possibility they simply never learned about it, either because Goku did not tell them either during their life or during his afterlife, essentially never communicated it to them for whatever reason. The same thing with, Piccolo and Kami. Or another possible in-universe answer is the fact that the androids destroyed Kami's Lookout, so by the time that Gohan would have been able to theoretically use this, or even future Trunks, it was way too late and it was already eliminated, and that possibility was no longer available or accessible to them. And for all we know, whenever there's no guardian there, whenever there's no one there to watch over everything that's happening, the Lookout might actually no longer have access to this other dimension, because even using, let's say, Dragon Ball Super logic, Dende was able to rebuild the access to the Room of Spirit and Time, so it's entirely possible that it's a guardian or godly power for the gods of the different planets to be able to access that, and so when Kami died, that was cut off too, although that's something else that, is never really said to us in the story. But ultimately, I think that out of universe, another reason we could say is that Toriyama didn't come up with the idea at the time, and so as a result, he kind of had to retroactively insert this concept in everything as it was going about. Kind of like the idea of one-day visits not being a factor here, even though they had many years for Goku and friends to come back from the dead in order to fight against the androids. The same thing that King Yama was going to do with Kid Buu, where he brought Vegeta back to fight against him. It's entirely possible that sort of outcome could have happened, and it could have happened here too. But that's all up to you to let me know your own thoughts down below. What do you think exactly is the reason they didn't use it? Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications so you could stay up to date with all my future videos. If you like this content, make sure to leave a like and share this video out, and make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.